Yake aya yursatini ltakat yuhan. Achtuasaku atulqa. Yiqakwawus. Gusuchat. Gusuchane. Ya tel achiti like tel Quan has to anikak like at plain aka yechat yati at plain. Atika aya wedu at kisani. Akaya kwalituasagu de ki de aya yatini. Lichéesh. Yisakuge Gusa Yechatyati. Gusuchat Yisakuge. Kwalkana aq kwalituasaku. Clash aq Quan anikak. Clash achiti yig. Ya itika watu his. At plain kach. Gusuchat.
Sayek.
Clash sayek. Hikekwa. Clash aq Quan anikak. Like Gursach Yechatyati. At plain. A dika. At kisani kutsati. Yel Tóoch iduwasáakw we eitlini. De ki de aya dutin. Yag wushas kulagao. Klingit ka anushi. Guksa yechatyati. Kwash yu an ka'a. Ka away. Teat klein da iri wan qanins ke uwa ik. Yisukuge gusuchat. Adu anisa. Daqnachsa satiyag. Chaknachsatiya. Kagwantan. Chukanedi. Daktawedi. Yelnachsatiya. Kiks adi. Qanach edi. Tluknach adi. She iduwasáakw tlega we qad tlain. She tika iduwasáakw. One qanins shortcut daqaqushi. Guksa yechatyati.
Texas Yechatyati.
Like Tlingit ani.
Sayek. Finger. Honey.
She tika. Gwan qanins we uz katuasaku. Sheetka. Ye away yechatyati sheetka gunilcheesh. Okay. Thank you for playing Where's Renee? This is apparently becoming a mobile class, but I thought I'd just sort of see. So I started asking some questions. I said, Tlech achiti yi yechat uti. I'm not in my house. Then I said, Tlech ak Quan has to anikak. Not on the land of the ak Quan people. Then I said, two different ways to say, where am I? And I said, I'm on a big island. Atika qatkisani qutsati. On the ocean side, out on the ocean, there's these little islands. Gwallitowasagu de ki de iatini with Lichéesh. If you want to look way out to sea, it's possible. If you want to see what's way out there. Then I said, Tóoch iduwasáakw ya eitlini, de ki de dutin. The Pacific Ocean is called Tóoch, which is raven black, and it's the name of the Pacific Ocean. And I said again, people can see way out to sea. Then I said, Yak has wush has ku. I should have said Yak wush has kutlagao. I think I said kutlagao. Yak wush has kutlagao. Tlingitka anushi. Can anybody translate that one?
When you talked about canoes, but Anushi is Russian when the Russians came, I think.
Yeah, well, Yak here, wush has kutlagao. They fought together. Well, they fought against each other. Wuch-in. So Wuch-in has kutlagao. They fought together. Yay! They like joined forces against the evil or whatever. Darth Vader. Whoosh has kutlagao. They fought each other. So wuch-in and whoosh are different things in front of a verb. Just keep that in mind. Wuch-in is usually pretty good. We worked together. We ate together. So you'd say wuch-in wutuwacha. But if we're, I don't know, some kind of cannibals or something, whoosh wutudacha. So the verb would change a little bit. That's we ate each other. Like I had a pinky, you had my thumb. Yeah, we're not going to do that kind of stuff, but just showing you how the grammar works. Then I said, ʼunei hasyati, wait, chak nachsati kagwantan chukinedi duklawedi. I said, they are here, these clans. And I named eagle clans, kagwantan chukinedi duklawedi. Yesh nachsati kiksadi kluknachadi qanachtedi. Then name the raven ones. Yeah, so that was Goosú X. I think next week I'll just be home, but I hope so.
Wondering why you were talking about Sitka, because I joined late and I was like, what's going on?
I said, well, let's play a game. I didn't know how to say that either. I said, Agach we're gonna gamble. So playing as well, like if you want to start talking about playing, there is a verb, ashkulyat, and that's for playing by running around. So that usually involves active getting up and running around. If you're sitting, then it usually just sort of shifts to ashka, which is gambling, but it's also playing cards, and I think it works for playing board games as well. So you gotta sort of specify what kind of playing you're doing. Okay.
Renee,
Ah,
I have a quick question. I was hearing you say Goosú X, which I thought was where are you?
oh.
Which is why I was like confused every time you looped back to that. What's the word that you swapped there that I was mishearing?
So Goosú X. So there's Goosú where X. That's me. The chet part is the me. And so we're going to actually look at a verb that shows us that with name, right? And so it's sort of like, but just learning how to catch it. Because, yeah, you're catching the where, but then you're like, I keep telling you where I am. And that's not where, well, I know where I am. Right? But it's just catching that. The I is the you. Just like you could say, wasa iati. So like a lot of us have learned that. How are you? The I part is the you. I could say wasachatyati, but that would be weird to ask people. They'd say, I don't know. But that you could grammatically do that. And we'll look at a verb that does that. Anything else on your mind? Questions?
Wasa duwasáakw llingit slowly.
Kashtagenach.
Gosh,
Kashtagenach. But there's actually, let's see. That one is slowly, so I'll put it in the chat, and then I will show you folks. I gotta do this thing. Someday Zoom will update so it doesn't lose the underline on our underline G. But in the meantime, if you put an underline G in the chat, you gotta do something so that it creates something underneath it. So I just do a bunch of dashes in a row. Otherwise, that underline G will disappear. So if I do that, it's gone. So this is an adverb. And it means, so it doesn't really mean slow, it means slowly. And so kashtaqeinach is slowly. I don't really understand how it works, but I just know that that's how you'd say it. So you'd say kashtaqeinach yuchatan. That's a command for speak slowly. Or you could say kashtaqeinach tuyeyanakha. Say it again slowly. So we can use adverbs. There's a list of them. Since we mentioned the word adverb, I'll put the list on our class. We probably won't go over too many of them. But there is also a verb, which might be in here. So the verb for it, let me go find it, is chiyak, is the verb root. So here, when we look up a verb, we see this capital O, we see the letter L, we see this root marker, and then chiyak. And then there's actually this kind of little cross thing, little X, tiny X, I don't know what it's called. Do we know what these things are? Like, what is this O telling us? There's a capital O. You're getting object. So you're getting your Tlingit decoder rings. You're gonna have like a little decoder ring, like a little watch that you could spin the dials on. Wouldn't that be amazing? It had to be like gigantic, but this says there is a little. I sometimes think of it like a little wheel in a slot machine. You know, so you have like a cherry or a. I don't play slot machines, but there's like a cherry and a coin, and there's like some symbol. And if you match up these symbols, you win money. But once it locks into place, like that's it. It's a cherry or it's a crown or whatever. So on this little wheel, you have object pronouns. And that means who the verb is happening to. That's what the object pronoun talks about. So like it happened to me, it happened to you, it happened to them. So those ones, which is really the difference between they and them, who and whom, I and me, is whether it's a subject or an object. And so this just shows you which one you can pick from. And then we've got these lists of object pronouns that you can sort of pick from. Just like, so, and we were dealing with object pronouns just a minute ago with Goosú X. That chat is an object. So I could say, I am slow. What about this letter L? Anybody know?
Is that the classifier?
That is the classifier. So every verb has a classifier. And this will just show you a letter, right? It's just going to say it's this, and it gives you like a short form of it. With the idea we teach folks how to sort of use this stuff. That means it's going to be Li sh when it is that way, and it's going to be La sh when it's not that way. Although it usually, this one, in this case, the A does get knocked out of there, which happens. Okay, so sh would mean it is that way. Sh means it isn't that way. Oops, chiyak. So that's one of the main functions of the classifier is just to mark whether or not it has happened. And it marks that by putting a letter I in there. And yeah, let's develop a tlingit slot verb. It's like a verb. Like, it's not slow. A whole bunch of coins come out. I don't know. So, and then the root marker says here's the verb root. Now the thing with most verb roots, like if we look at this one over here, which is chi, that one can be short and high, chech, or it can be long and high, chech. And then there are other ones. You'll learn why. So some of them, this one is short and high, ish. And then here's one that's long and high, ish. And there should be one that's long and low, ish. Those are your three versions. What this little X tells you is it says, oh, this one doesn't change the vowel. It always stays the same. So, yak. It will always be that. And then it doesn't show it here, but I guess I should put it in there. I don't know if there's a command form for this. You would say, be slow. I guess if we were all sloths and you're trying to be fast, I'm like, what are you doing? You gotta be a sloth. I guess I could command you to be slow. But you can also do a prohibitive, which is don't be slow. I learned that from these elders as we were translating this little story about like, don't miss the bus or something, hurry up. And so, yeah, that's a good question. Some questions have like multiple long answers, but.
I have a question, and I know in Tlingit, the sentence structure is object, subject, verb, OSV. Where do we put adverbs? So if I wanted to say suyeyanaka, but kash de genach, where do I put that? Like, say it again slowly for me.
It always goes right before the verb. So that one's pretty close to English. Well, I guess maybe English, you can go either way, right? Or you go after the verb? I don't know. Say it slowly. I said it slowly. I walked slowly. I did it carefully. I guess you do it after the verb. Is that right? Somebody tell me how this language works. But in Tlingit, you use it right before the verb. So, and then there's a list of them. Like you could say, kashteqainach, slowly, kedain, to do something well. So you could say, kedain nata, sleep well. Kedain shilsa, rest well. Kedain yagagu, walk carefully. So it's well or carefully. And then there's, chakugi is haphazardly. And there was some elders I worked with. Someone got real fired up. This one, she would say, I was like, I know. She says, I don't just speak any old way. So she'd get fired up sometimes. Good questions. Okay. So let's kind of keep talking about this object pronoun. So we're going to look at this in terms of introducing ourselves, when we start talking about ourselves. And I will say, standing up in front of people and introducing yourself is something we didn't do a long time ago. Like we would just start talking about what we were there for. And I am in Sitka for some funerary services for Dastaya Ethel Makinen, who was, I think it is down to 9 master level birth speakers. Like those 9 that are left are going to be very difficult to replace. And we do have like quite a few. I think there's hundreds of people who are learning and becoming speakers or who could speak at various levels already. But I would, if you said, Well, who could just say stuff in Tlingit? Like if we just said, switch it all to Tlingit right now, I think you might have 30 or 40 people who could do quite a bit of stuff. And then maybe 15 total that could do most of the stuff. And I would say there's 9 right now who could do kind of almost all of the stuff. So it's a little scary. But also, anyways, I'm not sure where I got on that tangent a little bit. But just sort of like, oh yeah, I now remember. So there are occasions that call for specific types of words, like in Tlingit. Like we do have structures for if someone is going through a really hard time, or if we're supposed to represent our clan or sometimes our community. And I think that can translate to our organizations. And so usually there are certain things you're supposed to do when you stand up. And it's good to learn, as you learn Tlingit, it's good to learn those things. Like, what are you supposed to say at a funeral? And what are you supposed to say? And I'll tell you, just remember this, there's a whole bunch of occasions where you don't do your autobiography. That's a really important thing. And you might stand up and talk about who your people are and how you're related to that person that we are all talking about. But being able to introduce yourself is important because as we get to know each other, sometimes we want to know who's your people. And then we're going to find these common relatives. And like I was having a conversation last night with a cousin, and then we found out like multiple of our cousins had married multiple, like we just had like relatives all over the place. It was really neat. And it's fun to think about that stuff in Tlingit as well. So we kind of start with learning this question, right? And for a bunch of us, like this might be a repeat sort of thing, but it's always good to review. And we're going to do something a little more challenging after this. But to ask, what is your name? Which you'll see, like, there's also this other way to translate it, which is how are you called? And none of this is saying one of them is right and one of them is wrong. It's saying, like, this is how most people would translate that for you. This is sort of how the grammar is literally working. And we'll take a look at that in a second. So to ask this question, we would say, wasa iduwasáakw. Wasa iduwasáakw.
Wasa iduwasáakw.
Wasa iduwasáakw.
Wasa iduwasáakw.
For some people, this is going to be I. For other people, that's going to be E. Wasa iduwasáakw. And I think it's fine either way. This is an object pronoun. And there's a list of them. I'll show you folks where the list, you have them in this workbook. And then you start to just remember, okay, it's an object. And it does take a little bit of that stuff. However far you want to take that sort of grammar stuff is up to you. Some people just say, I just want the bare bones, the basics. And I did try to make a little card. I was trying to make like a little business card size thing with all the main pronouns on there, but it became too small. So it needs to come with its own magnifying glass or something. However, if we sort of look at this, wa, sa, those two combine to make a how question. Sometimes it is kind of a what question, but this is kind of an example of that. So wa and sa. This little equal sign means that thing belongs to this other thing. Those two things are linked together. So the wa part is what makes it a how question. The sa part actually comes from a verb, which is related to this verb, which means to name it. So you're saying, name how, and then you say, iduwasáakw. Those are the 4 parts of this verb. I is you as an object. It happens to you. D is people as a subject. The subject does it. So you, people, classifier. This shows that it has happened. Sáakw, to name something, to call it that. Wasa iduwasáakw. And I think it is helpful to see those parts, because I could say something like wasa ikwasakw. What am I gonna call you? How am I gonna call you? Right? But the sock part has to do with a name. That wouldn't be like, oh, call me uncle or something like that. It'd be like, it refers to a name. Sa is a verb root as well for naming something, just like right here. So I could say, ʼunei iduwasáakw, ʼachlilk iduwasáakw. My name is Renee. My grandparent named me that. So the question, or the answer, so here's a fill in the blank thing. We're always looking for those fill in the blanks. And then we're going to talk about this you for a second. But first, let's just say the thing. So we have iduwasáakw, you are called. And that changes to iduwasáakw. Chat, you, me, you, me. Then we get this high toned you right before it. So it should go you, iduwasáakw. It also ends with this KW. That means there's this little puff of air at the end. So to say this one, we say iduwasáakw.
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 iduwasáakw. A couple of things that do happen when people make tiny mistakes, it does happen, it's not a big deal, is sometimes people will say iduwasáakw, and they're just switching, they're just putting a different type of pronoun in there. They're saying, instead of saying they call me this, or people call me this, you're saying people call my this. So it's just using the wrong pronoun. Or they will just sort of forget to put it in there. So if they'll say, ʼunei iduwasáakw, and I'll sit there thinking, who? Who are they talking about? Because you're saying they, third person, are called Renee. And maybe they are. There's been other Renee out there. But they're all me. Okay. Any questions about that stuff? Chat and chat. Sometimes you'll hear people say, yay iduwasáakw. And sometimes you'll hear people say, you iduwasáakw. There is technically a difference here. And this is not about right or wrong, again. But I do think this is something that's in our language that's getting a little bit lost, because it's a fine point. It's a very fine point. So here's how it goes. If your name is right here, you should be saying you iduwasáakw. If you move your name anywhere else, or something becomes between your name and this phrase, it will become ye iduwasáakw. For example, I could say ʼunei iduwasáakw. Then I might say ʼachlilk dusani ʼunei iduwasáakw. Achowechatsu ye iduwasáakw. My grandfather's uncle was named Renee. That's why it's also my name. Okay, so yay, if it's not, just remember, if the name's not right there, it goes to yay. So what's switched here is the chat. As in terms of continuing to think about how we write tlingit, the I is attached to the verb. So the verb is iduwasáakw. It's one word. This verb has two words. So chat is written as its own word. Okay. let someone Okay. So there's another way you can say my name, and this is a short form. So you're saying Ayah ach sayi. So in this case, you do have ach right here. So what is the difference between chat and ach?
One is a subject and one is an object.
Well, one is an object. Chat is an object. But ach is different. Like I'd say ach kuchayi. Ach kuchidayi. It shows possession. Yes, it's possessive. So when you say ach, that is my. And it could be like my mother, my hand, my pencil. And in this case, saw is the noun for name. It is the same saw as in iduwasáakw. It's the same thing, right? The KW means it happens repeatedly, right? So you're literally saying, people keep calling me this, right? And in this case, ach sayi and sayi is the possessed form of name. So in Tlingit, we'll just use like cup. We'll just use cup as an example. If we're speaking English, you'd say Lance, cup, Lance's, cup, right? The cat's meow, right? So the possession marker goes on the thing that's owning it. That's the dog's bone. That's the cat's meow. That's Lance's cup. Tlingit puts that possessive marker on the possessed object. So you would say, that's Lance cups. If we're using Tlingit grammar and speaking English, which go ahead, try it anytime you want to. Just mess with people. Just start saying like table on. Table on your keys are. I don't know. It doesn't sound like Yoda. Don't say it because people say it, but it does change the order of the words. So you would say Lance cups. And then you would say cat meows, right? It would just sound really interesting. Dog bones. You're like, wait, dog bones? Like a whole bunch of bones that belong to a dog? I don't know. But that's how Tlingit works, right? So Tlingit does do that. And then we will look in a few minutes at how there's a set of rules that are really crazy complicated, but it does make sense. There's a reason why this is a Y and an I. But if you say this phrase, this is another way to say your name. And it's kind of, choose how you want to do it. So you could say, Ayah ach sayi.
Ayah ach sayi.
Ayah ach sayi.
Ayah ach sayi.
Ayah ach sayi. So that's saying, and this could also say, is my namesake, right? So for example, in Tlingit, you have a name, and the reason I said like I am all those Renee is because that Renee was also me. Like that's just how you think about it in Tlingit. So I would say Fenton Jacobs iduwasáakw achsai. My namesake was called Fenton Jacobs in English. So speaking of English, we do have Lichéesh. So this, we're going to look at the ʼunei part first. So everybody say, you got one right here? Say, eh. 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 And for super bonus points, how would you say my mouth?
Oh, ʼunei comes from a k, which is mouth.
Yes.
Ach.
Ach. Eh.
Ach. K. Five cards.
Ach. Eh.
Ach. What is ach? Means my mouth.
My mouth.
Ach. K.
So how would I say your mouth?
If
Yeah, away. Ich. Ich. And if there's this third person, how would I say their? Yeah, away. So this is the body part for a mouth. It's also just an opening, right? Like, so all kinds of things can have a cave, a house, a whole bunch of things have a. And then this part.
A cave or a house have a.
So this part is nach.
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 No.
Nach.
Nach.
All right.
And this is through or along. So when you put these together, through the mouth, you get.
Ah, a knock means through the mouth.
Nach.
Nach.
And so the way that this works is you get kleit ka nach.
Kleit ka nach.
Kleit ka nach. Kleit ka nach. And if you don't like saying that, you don't have to. You could say English, nach. You could say, there's a whole bunch of things. You could say German, nach, or if, you could, I think you'd say like Deutsch or something if you're speaking German. So you got some choices there. You could say ach ish has nach, through the mouth of my father's people. So this is usually with the nach, you're saying in that language. That's usually what it translates to. So I might say llingit nachsa. Name it in llingit. That's a command. Name it in llingit, which is another way of saying speak. Llingit. I could also say llingit nach yuchatan. Speak in llingit. So once that tlingit chinach, once you hear that, that's saying in the tlingit language, right? Now, and then you have the iduwasáakw again. But as far as like how this stuff really works, when you stand up and kind of introduce yourself, and we are going to jump ahead a little bit. I'll say a few things about the moiety. So there is tóoch. If you go inland, they say tóoch, which is really interesting. We're still arguing about how to write that. My side of the argument is you put an underline on it. And, oh yeah, IRS chinach, right? And so yeah, you can also make kind of fun jokes about it too. But in the interior, when you have an underlined G, X, or K, which are they're like a group of cousins. They have these similar influences on things. You're going to see it in other places. They will push this oo vowel to become o. That's just really for Teslin and Carcross. Most other places it just stays in. It doesn't affect the oo vowel. Tóoch. Or say tóoch. Tóoch. Chalk.
Chalk.
Chalk. Chalk. Lichéesh. Lichéesh. These are your two main sides in Tlingit culture. Tóoch or chalk and then Yale. Those are your two sons.
Yeah.
Whole bunch of clans. If any kind of ceremonial stuff is going to happen, one of these sides will be speaking to the other. So that's a real, like if you go to a funeral or something, you're supposed to give some kind of speech at some place. If you're this side, you talk to that side. If you're that side, you talk to this side, right? And so like that's a really how the whole culture is built in terms of what happens in front of the people's eyes. So there's a bunch of other concepts here, and we'll go through some of these as well. Talking about where you're from, where you're born, who your clan is, who your father's people are, who your grandparents and stuff, where you live, or this is where you stay. So I could say, I stay in Sitka, and could say, but I live at this place called Tóoch, which is over by the Twin Lakes area. So then it goes through some names of places. So here's Sheetka, Ak, right? And then it goes through some names of Quan. We are probably going to add one. It's an
Sorry, could you say that again?
Like,
I'm
so there is an interesting sort of thing about like the Quan. So Quan means the ancestral people of a place. So if you talk about Ak Quan, that's not all of us that live in Juneau. That's the clans that are from there. So like I'm not Ak Quan. That is Yachtetan, Lichéesh, Wushkitan. Those are the clans that are Ak Quan. And then I am Shkut Quan. So you carry that identity. Don't matter where you live. Might not even matter where you were born. What matters is what Quan does your name come from. Because you could grow up and being like, I'm from Chilkoot, I'm from Shkut Quan, that's who we are. But then you'd be 40 years old and discover that your name comes from Dry Bay. Like, oh man, I gotta change my whole identity now. I've been making fun of these, I've been teasing them like they're my cousins. But now I'm one of them, right? So you are from where your name is from in terms of the Quan part. And there's ways to be, like if you get adopted, like if someone brings you into the Tlingit clan and they give you a name and stuff, that's where you're from now. But that also means, okay, if you get adopted, you get named, you get brought into a clan, I think that's fabulous. But if that clan's doing a bunch of cultural work, you shouldn't be sitting there watching them. You just gotta know, be like, oh, what, we're working now? I'm in, I'm doing the work. Whatever the work is, I am doing the work with the group. Don't wait for that invitation to go help out. Then you get this template. This is one way to do it. There are several ways to do this. This is not some sort of standard way. There's no standardized way to introduce yourself. It's not a question of right and wrong or anything like that. So, but what this template kind of does is it says you don't have to keep using the full versions of all the verbs because we already know that we're talking about you once you sort of start rolling through this. So the first part is iduwasáakw. That's my name. That's what I'm called. And so you pick one of these, right? So it says pick one. And then I could say Lance Twitchell. I don't even need a verb on there. Lance Twitchell. Yale. Well, in this case, I would just say the clan, right? You could say Kuchna or Yelna, Chatsati. I usually just go straight to the clan, though. Long time ago, people knew once you said the name of your clan, they already knew if you're eagle or raven. So in this case, this underline X means it goes right on the end of that name. So the name of our clan is Llukach Adi. So I would say Llukach Adich Chatsati. If you're Kagwantan, you'd say Kagwantan Chatsati. If you were Nanya Ayi, Nanya Ayich Chatsati. So you do attach that right to there. That means I am one of these things. For these ones, again, I don't think you need a verb. You say the clan or nation of your father. So I would say Kagwantan Yedi. I could also say Yupik Yedi. So you're saying what your father's people are. This is not a mandatory thing. There are situations where people say, I don't know my father. That's totally fine. You don't have to say this. Or there's some people who say, you know what, my dad was not nice to me. I don't want to talk about that. No one says you have to. But the relationship long time with your father's people was special. So you can still have a relationship with your father's people. And so this is where you would put the name of your father's clan. So Kagwantan Yedi means my father was Kagwantan. That could also be Norwegian Yedi. But Filipino Yedi. I've also heard Coast Guard Yedi. I thought that was pretty funny. And I've also heard Elvis Presley Dechchan. That was also funny. So when you say, so Yedi does mean a child of. So I could say, Ach Yedi, Yedi, Du Yedi, my child, your child, their child. This one, somebody tell me what Dechchan is. I suddenly forgot.
Grandchild of.
Grandchild, right? So this is usually one of two things. Your father's father or your mother's father. So that's how you take care of, like, you start going up the lineage, because everything follows the mother. We are matrilineal people. If I know what you are, I know what your mother is, their mother, their mother, their mother. It goes all the way back. So what we have to start specifying is when we start getting into the fathers of those folks. So my mother's father is Daklawedi. So I would say Daklawedi Dachchan. And then I have to add a verb to that, right? If I'm in the course of introducing myself, Kagwantan Yedi Daklawedi Dachchan. If you are from a family that traces their lineage, nobody's better than anybody else in this kind of stuff. Some people do, some people don't. Dakanuku, technically, it's your mother's father's clan. So someone's mother is Tlukachadi, their mother is also Tlukachadi. But their mother's father, so their mother's, would be their grandpa, was
You said
Shangupi.
mother's father?
Mother's father.
Okay.
And we got to follow those moms. That's why we say it like that.
So my mother's father.
It is your great grandparent.
Uh-huh.
But whatever their clan is, that clan is referred to as Ach Dakanuku. Da is around, Ka is on. Well, if you put these together, Da Ka, they just go together. It means around the outside of it. Nuch is a shell, like an eggshell, crab shell. Dakanuku, my outer shell. That's not just anybody. That is specifically your mother's father's clan.
Which would be Koho, Jack. I think it's Koho. How would I say that?
You'd say Tluknach Adi Aya Achdakanuku. So this would be a clan. So these three right here are clan names. But this could also be, like, if my mother, so there's my mother, and then there's her mother, if her father turned out to be, like, again, Simshian, I would say Sutskan aya achtakanuku. The Simshian are my outer shell. So we have clans. So this is just using aya. It is had nakahiti. Or say nakahiti.
Nakahiti.
Nakahiti. Nakahiti. Na is a clan or a nation. Well, Kahiti is like the house on that thing. You'll see it in a few different name structures, right? So Nakahiti means the clan house. So most clans have houses. Last night we were in Kayashkahit. Kayashkahit ayaha Nakahiti. That's how they would say that. Anybody know what this ha thing is?
Our?
Our, right? So we just did ach idu, my, your, their. Ha ye hustu, ha ye hustu. Our, y'all's, them all's is, right? So this could, you could say kayashkahit ayah hustu nakahiti. Their clan house is the platform house. And so and this is stuff like, whenever we talk about this stuff as well, we always have to sort of just say, be gentle with yourselves and be gentle with others. There's a lot of people who've gone through a lot of stuff. There's a lot of families that have been torn apart by colonialism and other forces. And so not everybody knows their clan house. Not everybody, I've seen people get really emotional about this stuff. And it's okay, because we could put the pieces back together. If we work together, and if we're kind, and if we just sort of remember to be safe with each other and keep each other in a good sort of space with some of this stuff. And then sometimes we have to sort of, and even if that clan house fell down, we'd still say it. We're still from that house. So your name is from a house, which is from a clan, which is in a place. Okay. There's different ways to say this, but the way I like to say it is Quan awe uhan. So if this was me, I would go through this thing. I would say Shukach adichatzati ka guantan yadi dakloidi dachchan yehit ayaha nakahiti shkut Quan awe uhan. So that's shkut Quan. So that's where you say, if you were Ak Quan awe uhan. And if you scroll, you go up a few pages, you do have all the Quans that are listed. Chutznuwu, Chutzada, right? Wherever you're from. This is where you were born. Chuchzati, Shkagwech, Chuchzati. And you put this at the end, which means located there. And that's also a time marker. Kutan in the summertime. Ta in the wintertime. Naskiagi on Wednesday. And then you have where I live, Yechatyati. All right, well, we started that. Goosú Yechatyati. Where am I? We played Where's Waldo at the beginning of class today. Except I was Where's Renee? Goosú X. And then KTOO is where I live, and it technically kind of means owning some property. So if you own a house somewhere, that's also KTOO. Okay. Any questions?
ʼunei, if you're saying where I was born, does it have, so like is it the geographic place or the people whose place it is? Like, could it be Karankwak, Kukzati, ziti, which is the people whose place it is, or does it need to be like this specific name of the place?
No, that could work. Like, let's say, so this would switch from kuchzati to kudzati. So I might say, Tanana hastu ani kuch kudzati ach shukwa yedi. My firstborn child was born in Tanana. Wait, so I could use another language, or I could use another place name. I could use an area. You could say, Anushi anik yewuti. So oops, kudzati. So yeah, it could be, it doesn't have to be like a specific place name or whatever. It could be on their land or whatever. Lakota hastu anikuk kudzati. Was born on the land of the Lakota people.
So if you were pivoting from I was born here and now I live here, it could be like Kronkwa Ziti Sayek Ye Khatyati. Does there need to be something in the middle of that? I was born here, but now I'm here, or is it just I was born here, now I'm here?
You could say Ku'a. So like I could say Shqagwik Kuchzati Ku'a Quan hastu anikuk Khatyati. And then, and if you're using, the other thing you could do, like let's say I used some sort of place name from a different language because I wanted to sort of recognize that. I could say, I'm trying to think of one now. I might say, Ukteagvik Kuchzati Aku Atlet Kakoa Barrow, right? Or you could use Tleit Kak Einach, and that's where you could sort of give folks that, like if you knew the name of Minneapolis or whatever, if you knew the indigenous name and you wanted to use that, that's totally cool. But if someone's listening to you and they speak Tlingit and you start throwing a third language in there, they'll be like, wait, what are we doing? And so that just gives them a little cue, as you just, like you could say the thing, like you could say Ukteagvik Ayehaswutian Ukteagvik Oy Enupiak Einach Kletkak Einach Koa Barrow Uduwasáakw. Used to be called Barrow, not no more. Although I was in Anchorage Airport and they said the flight to Barrow. I was like, to where? What are we doing? Make the switch already. But they could have done it right there. They said the flight to Ukteagvik, which used to be called Barrow, will be leaving in 20 minutes. It's a good question.
Is there a way to shorten up the sentences if you now, if you still live at your birthplace, if your residence is now your birthplace? Is there a way to not say it twice in your introduction?
Oh, yeah. Well, you could say, like, for example, if I said Zantikihini, right? So let's say I was born there. Zantikihinik kuchzati a kuchau. So you switch it to just two A's in a row. Sounds and looks exactly like the word lake. Oops, I put two high tones. So is used a lot. It just means that place. And Tlingit does this stuff all the time. So if I was going to talk about my hometown of where I was born, Shqagwe, Ayeyeti, right? So I name the place and say it's there. So that's what you would use.
There could be Yehate. I don't own a house in Juneau. I'm a millennial.
Ayechateti, right? Atleindana etinechateti achtuasuku hitchau. I need a lot of money because I want to buy a house.
Lichéesh.
Yak Johan, Lichéesh. Achtu yak wuchin chasati yayaki. Huchaway had wuchin yejitnei yayidet. Wushkanach tukachtu da atchoa. Akatsu yejagachtu ne wuchin. But Lichéesh. That'll do it for today, but we'll do it again. Keep working. Lichéesh for doing that. So this thing is here if you want to use it. I think it's pretty handy. There's other ways to do it, and this never says any other way is incorrect. Okay, see you folks.
Lichéesh.
Okay.